We have new theme music. Some of you can hear it.
So what? Eat deep.
Oh, wait, I gotta screw that all up.
Dimitri, you make me laugh.
Anyone can make you hear that?
Got a little dancing going on.
Does anyone recognize that?
The cartoon, isn't it?
First person that gets it, I'll buy lunch. No cheating.
How would we cheat?
Hold up SoundHound right now and figure out what it is.
It's our new theme music. George, come on, you know this. You're from the 80s with me. Give it a chance to populate here for a second while we enjoy the game.
Well, it's obscure enough that SoundHound didn't pick it up.
Listen. All right, it's 3 o'clock. We should get started. It's a theme song from Buckaroo Banzai, a cult classic from the 80s, a movie well known for being about nothing. So, but this is about something. So thank you for joining us out there in virtual land. And most people will be watching this between March and probably August or September to tune in and learn about this portion of the Arizona industry. And this is actually fantastic because we have some people that I've looked up to for years. I mean, Jared and I, we go back so far. And I know so little about extraction myself. It's an art, it's a science, and we have some of the top experts in the country here on the panel to introduce themselves so that they can be contacted by you at a later date, introduce their companies so that you know who supports social equity, and talk about the process of extraction. Bird's eye view, bird's eye, 100,000 foot view. It's very complicated, but we're going to give you some initial pointers. So this is a very exciting topic for me, and I know Caleb, our moderator here, knows plenty about it as well. Just some footnotes on our administrative stuff. If you haven't looked online, there's already 12, 14 hours of webinar of information on there in regards to how the Arizona industry works. There's going to be another 32 hours by May 5th. At that point, we're inviting companies who want to share information with social equity applicants and others who want to learn about the industry to do hour-long deep dives. We have commitments from 22 companies already. We're going to cap it at about 30. So if you're interested, contact us. And that will be the Social Equity Module Express Deep Dive Series that will be released through May. We'll have ongoing meetings in person and networking meetings for the social equity applicants and the industry leaders who support them throughout the summer. And as DHS evolves the process of social equity and starts doing the applications, we'll do the final modules with Dr. Will Humble. So we have this all in place. It's evolving as we go. We thank you for your support. This is an exciting project where we get to actually help people, and the industry has stepped up and volunteered some of its experts, which some of whom we have here today, and we're going to get to right now. So thank them, thank you, and let's start moving forward. Caleb, I'll get to you last. We have Dr. Bober here from Scottsdale Community College. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Barbara from Scottsdale Community College.
I have
and
trouble with that.
You'll get it one day.
And Bob. It's Bob.
Just like Bob, yeah, with a
you don't look like a Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't anyway, we have a cannabis education program through our business school at Scottsdale Community College. They're 8 weeks, they're online, they're non-credit, so they're available to everyone in the country. And we're really excited to partner with META and have that social equity piece to it. And thank you to all of our supporters out there who are helping us build this program and grow the program. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, and well, it's a wonderful, it's just everything timing worked out so perfectly because Scottsdale Community College is going to have these cannabis training courses for executives, for employees, for staff, and to be working with all these industry members for the next decade or two. And META is just doing this one project where we're providing education information. So it's all working out just perfectly. And Dr. Barbara, we appreciate your partnership and Scottsdale Community College's support. So thank you very much. We have a few other people that we need to thank. Dr. Will Humble, former DHS director, is one of our facilitators. Jeff Tice, a well-known industry consultant for the last years, is also one of our facilitators. We just recruited Allison from Copper State. Is she here? Where's Allison?
It doesn't look like she's joined yet.
Yeah, if you can email Allison, because Allison's got like a master's degree in social equity theory and policy, and we're finding all these nuggets throughout the Arizona industry to join this program to help evolve it to a higher level so that we can help more and more people as we come up with more and more ideas before the social equity component of the Arizona licensing structure is implemented this fall. So it's really cool to have Allison on board from Copper State. Along those lines, we have Jeff, we have Will, we have Allison, we have Tina from Zuber Lawler. I'm not sure where she's at, but she's a wonderful resource bringing in people from around the country to help participate in this process. So thank you, Zuber Lawler. And thank you, Copper State, and thank you, Scottsdale Community College. And thank you, Weed Maps, who's just a crazy, awesome company. When we told Weed Maps what we were doing here, they kind of said, you had us at hello, and we'll do whatever we can to help. And so it's been a fantastic partnership with them. So we can't thank them enough. And all the other companies that are participating as well, and all the panelists, et cetera, with their time. We are creating an unbelievable resource of information that sits online for the equity, social equity applicants and for other members of the community. So thank you very much. So did I miss anything? Any other admin stuff? Destiny Blanco, the person who makes everything happen behind the scenes, she's parked behind the thank you to our sponsors thing. And Destiny, did I miss anything?
Nope, just make sure that everybody is signed up to the website as a social equity applicant student, and we send out weekly emails to you guys so you guys stay updated and with A to Z DHS.
Yeah, we have over 1,000 people registered to watch the video series, but about 200 are registered with the 6 questions where they're going to be reached out to by us as social equity applicants for special projects and for special information. Oh, last thing. We're creating a list of freebies. We have like 16 companies that have said, we're going to do this and give this for free to the social equity applicants, which is incredible. I mean, Dama, Copper State, Zuber Lawler, Weed Maps, Alt 36, Proven Media, the list goes on. And we're going to be releasing that soon, which will be the first ever, not just state social equity applicant freebie list. It will be the first ever national social equity applicant freebie list. So you want to be on that list if you have something to offer for free, if your company's committed to this project, this philosophy, because that's going to be so cool. And we were talking about that before we went live. No one's ever done that before. So, I know Canna Owners is participating, but it's going to be a really cool list. So I know Scottsdale Community College is offering scholarships. So Harvest is offering scholarships. So we got to include all that. And we'll get to everything. There's only so many hours in the day. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to our panelists today and then take a deep dive or high deep dive, I'm not sure, into extraction, something I know nothing about. If you held a gun to my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between all the extraction methods. So please listen to these people. This is some great information. But first, let me ask them a little bit about them and their company. Let's start with Jared, and then Matthew will go next. Jared, you have been in the industry since I have been in the industry. Tell us about Jared, his journey, and Drip and TrueMed, and just.
Yeah, well, it started, I think 2010 or so, 2009. I was collecting signatures in Tucson. So I go way back, since at first there was an inclination there was going to be an industry. I was trying to be involved with it. Always knew I wanted to be a part of this. So it's been great to kind of spearhead it. Being an AZ native, it's my hometown. So want to bring the best of the best to the Valley. So yeah, started collecting signatures, started in the caregiver program, like we all kind of were as patients, not knowing where to get our meds. Then transitioned into helping get Bloom started, running their cultivation, transitioned out of theirs after that. In about 2013, met the TrueMed boys, and we had just the same visions of quality, and it couldn't have been a better match. So started with those boys about 2014, started extracting all their oil then. It was a lot more primitive back then of how we actually got the cannabis extracted, and it's evolved a lot. So we're dealing with not the safest methods back then. I mean, the industry didn't know any better. So it's been really amazing to kind of see the evolution of it to where we got here. So 2014, started extracting all the concentrates for TrueMed. 2016, we started branding TrueMed's concentrate company, which is Drip. So Drip is TrueMed's concentrates. We did that for the purposes of wholesaling. We're currently in 90 plus dispensaries across the Valley. I think we have one of the biggest catalogs available, not just from concentrates, but tinctures, salves, CBD products, vapes. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's been really fun innovating, keeping up with the newest trends, seeing the newest extractions, seeing the newest ways to medicate, keeping on that cutting edge, and keeping the quality at all-time high. That's, I'd say, the number one priority. So it's been quite an adventure to get here. And yeah, we're doing great right now, and Rec has offered a whole new slew of patients to kind of cater to. So it's really just it's amazing to be able to offer these patients quality medicine.
Jared, that was a perfect Zoom intro, complete with a video graphic thing behind you. I need.
Well, we have to thank Alex Sternheim for that. So I think you know who did that.
Alex Sternheim from Star House. Can you do one of those for Mita? I don't know what's going on behind him, but we don't have a video like that.
I'll send them your way.
No, that's cool. So Drip, you guys, everybody, TrueMed Drip, mom and pop philosophy, mom and pop organization, tremendous credibility in the state of Arizona. Tell us more about Drip. What's the difference between Drip and TrueMed?
So Drip is purely the concentrate company for TrueMed. So TrueMed is the cultivator and dispensary. TrueMed is the dispensary name too. So it originated as TrueMed, and we rebranded it Drip in a way to wholesale it to other customers. In a way, back when we started, it was a little more brash getting other dispensary branded products in other dispensaries. Everyone was trying to do their own thing. So we thought it very beneficial for us to brand ourselves outside of the dispensary name, and it and it made it more appropriate and targeted for actually what we were doing, the concentrates. Excuse me. Oh, thought someone cut in. So simply, Drip is TrueMed's concentrate brand, and from there we use all TrueMed's flower and byproduct for our extracts, and then we have a slew of products that we're able to manufacture outside of the TrueMed flower using various inputs, our CBD lines and stuff like that, or hemp. We have CBG, CBN. There's a lot of different products that we can infuse and manufacture outside of what is cultivated inside of TrueMed. But quality is the number one. TrueMed is the number one flower in the Valley. I'm saying it right now. Best flower makes the best concentrates. Fire in, fire out. It's that simple. So my job is kind of maintain the quality that the boys cultivated, and just make sure that exists all the way down the supply chains, all the way to the customer, making sure even to the packaging in the jar, everything is representative of that quality of how we intend it to be, and how the flower is cultivated, and maintaining those terpenes all the way through.
We'll get into all the details. Caleb will cover those nuances in a second. Thank Lauren and Mike for everything they've done for the industry. Tell them I said hello. And I don't remember the father's name. He was a really nice guy. We had lunch once, like 2013. But thank you. I really wish you would have been with us this summer. I told Alex from Star House, the top distributor in Arizona for products, to invite you many times, and it's great that you're here, because people need to know who you are, and this will be seen by thousands over the next 6 months. So
awesome.
Your story is a great one, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So we'll come back to you in a second.
Cool.
Matthew Martinez. Are you off mute?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. How you doing?
Good. We actually don't know each other, so this is a pleasure meeting you virtually, networking over Zoom. So tell us about yourself and your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Great to meet you as well. My name is Matthew Martinez. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Yes Cannabis. We are a cannabis incubation company based out of Los Angeles. I got my start in the industry back in 2010 here in LA, when cannabis wasn't really a career path. It was more of this side hustle that you did that you didn't really talk about. And over the course of this past, decade or so, my partners and I have really honed in on manufacturing and distribution. We've managed every aspect of the supply chain from cultivation to retail, and have really found our niche in manufacturing products, distributing those products to market, and commercializing new brands. And that's really where we find our sweet spot.
That's awesome. Are you guys in Arizona now or coming to Arizona? What's your Arizona strategy? I mean, if
So
you
we're actually, absolutely, no. So we're actually looking to expand in Arizona. We're, very bullish on the market, love the community, love what you guys are doing. And, we're very closely affiliated to Zuber Lawler. And so they've been making some amazing introductions for us in your state, and, really looking to take our best practices from here, help you guys along the way, and see what we can do in Arizona collectively.
Well, cool. Well, give me a call anytime. I'd love to help you out as well. As we all know, ideas, methodologies, brands, companies will be flooding into Arizona from California and from marketplaces that tend to have more competitive market structures that are going to be, vetting and churning out, the best gummies and the best extraction methods. Where you have more competition, you end up with a better product and ultimately a better result for the consumer. California obviously has more competition than Arizona. So we anticipate lots of people from California, Oklahoma, et cetera, maneuvering over here. Nobody will ever be better than Drip. I'm just throwing that out there, Jared, for you. but he didn't laugh.
Hey, it's hard to compete with local grown, man. It really is. And, we really take the approach of coming in and adding value. We don't want to, try to undo anything that you guys have done. There's a unique culture in Arizona, and we just hope that we can add to it and participate in a similar capacity.
No, I think after this, you're going to get a lot of calls. Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe the Jamaican extractors, coming into Arizona one day, that might change things. But either way, the marketplace is always going to be changing. That's just the nature of economics. It's great. We thank you for participating and offering yourself up as a social equity mentor. And ahead of time, it says a lot about your company, and we look forward to welcoming you in Arizona.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Just a quick side note is that I myself am a social equity candidate here in Los Angeles. So, have probably had some shared experiences with some of the people that are listening in. And, I'm here to provide any advice that we can. Any of our services are always at the disposal of this organization, and would love to help out as much as possible.
Wow. Thank you, Matthew. Katarina Park from the Kindred, from Giving Tree, from a series of organizations. I know her expertise and her credibility. And Matthew, Jared, I'm humbled already, and I'm about to shut up and turn this over to Caleb. But let me real quickly introduce Katarina Park from the Giving Tree, from Kindred. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey in the industry, and your organization?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. I'm the laboratory director here at Giving Tree. I started the beginning of 2015. I just interviewed for a job position here, and like the owner wanted to start up a lab. So she basically gave me, a room, which we are still in now. We're moving out of there soon, but and just, said to, go at it, try to develop a lab and develop brands and new products. So I came from a pharmacology field, formulation chemist. So I got to apply a lot of what I've, experienced and developed at my previous job to the cannabis industry. So a lot of the products on the Kindred line are, formulation based. So, we strive for high quality, also consistent dosing with our Kindred brand of products. Catatonic is also under Giving Tree umbrella. It's the isolated crystals is a method I developed because we use CO2 along with a binary solvent system to create those.
Yeah. You threw me off there when you started talking about some of that stuff. We'll get to those details later, which is like more of the technical stuff that Caleb understands. Kindred, Giving Tree, Catatonic, any other companies or brands that you guys are doing?
No, those are 2 brands right now. We're working on several others to come out in the future.
Excellent. Yeah, Kindred, of course, is spreading nationally. I don't know Catatonic that well, but I know Kindred is making inroads across the country. And I think that you guys have a wonderful team. And I see that being as one of the big brands coming out of Arizona, as well as Bake Bros and Drip and some of these other companies that are doing things right and moving forward. I never thought I would meet a formulation chemist. I don't even know what that is. So where did that come from? Where did you come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of pharmaceutical based. The lab that I was in, it was FDA regulated, so we are a GLP laboratory. So coming from, I worked there for 11 years. So coming from that to the cannabis industry was like night and day. It was kind of like the Wild West out here. You could, the regulations weren't tight at all. So it was eye-opening, but it allowed me to have the freedom to create different products.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, we look forward to hearing more about Kindred's journey, about Giving Tree's journey, about your journey, and introducing you to more individuals out there. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm embarrassed by the level of expertise here. I need to move on quickly and get myself out of the picture because you guys are going to start talking about things that I just know very little about. Real quick. So thank you, Katerina. Let me move on to George and then David. George, tell us about yourself and then your company, and then we'll move on and turn over to Caleb.
Okay, my name is George Tanchev, and I'm the CEO of Comerc. Comerc is known in the cannabis space as Pure 5. Comerc has 25 years history of building custom extraction equipment for the fragrance and flavor market. So these markets are known as terps in our industry, and pretty much extracting over 150 different herbs. All this history of knowing the herb and knowing what to extract from it, and what technology to offer for extraction of certain ingredients, we built a huge history of background, what ingredients to extract with what type of solvent. We built extraction systems with ethanol, N-hexane, steam distillation, superheated water, all kind of hydrocarbons and things like that. As soon as the target ingredient is extracted and properly delivered to the customer, that task is completed. So about 6 years ago, we got into that wild industry because we offered a machine for that industry. So we took kind of a wild approach too, because we offer the technology that nobody heard about that before, extracting with R134A. So we tested the plant towards few technologies and figured out that yes, using a modified hydrocarbon is one of the best approaches to do, because it kind of takes benefits of all other extraction methods. So we first created this extraction method to compete with CO2, to be able to provide all the disadvantages that CO2 has. But later on, we figured out, well, it's much more than that. We preserve pretty much the value of the plant and add more to the quality, especially creating great products. So starting with that in 2015, pretty much, we created a small machine, 20 liter, which is 40 pounds a day. Then 2 years later, we created a bigger one, 600 pounds a day. Then in what's 2019, we created 2,000 pounds a day. And this year we were releasing the largest unit, which is a 4,000 pounds a day unit for the hemp industry. And with that process, we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about our customers, about the market, about what we can offer to the market, that how we're different, how different things like everybody can, how we can be out of the box and deliver the best out there that nobody else can provide to the clientele. So that's yeah, pretty much. I can answer any question in the extraction industry.
Caleb, I hope you're ready for these guys. I mean, and ladies, because this is like so far over my head. Okay, so, but Dr. George, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the industry? Like, where are you from? I know it's an accent.
Yeah, I'm from Bulgaria. Bulgaria is known as #1 country of extraction of rose oil. 85% of it it's coming out of there. So that was the industry that we first entered into. 55% of the lavender oil in the world is coming from there too. All of the Terra oils are extracted there because their factories are there. So pretty big into the essential oil industry. I'm into engineering myself. I've been a professor in 2 universities and been in this industry pretty much dedicated to it, and over 25 years now.
Well, I'm impressed. This is crazy. Dr. Humble, I know you joined us a little late. We have such a superstar panel. We'll get to you in a second. Dr. George, I'm sure all the other panelists, and the way that we play this, guys, is interrupt, interject. If you see something that somebody says that's incorrect, you know, this transparency and this kind of accountability as everybody talks with each other on Zoom is very helpful, you know, like, you know, well, you guys know how it is. So, David.
Yes. Hi,
Dimitri. Your turn. Good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yep.
I think we're coming back live to meet on April 28th. So that will be a big day for the industry to gather. April 28th, you heard it here first.
Great.
But David,
calendar.
Yeah, put it down. David, tell us about yourself and your company.
Thank you. So David Fettner, I'm one of the managing partners of Grow America Builders. We are one of the only national construction companies that are solely focused in the cannabis world. So we build only in cannabis industry, extraction labs, cultivation, dispensaries all across the country. You know, we build anywhere. We're located in Chicago, but we build anywhere where cannabis is legal. Been a builder for over 20 years, built anything and everything. We built churches, strip malls, built schools. And about 3-4 years ago, when cannabis was becoming, you know, recreational in Illinois, we decided to start this business up. I've always been a recreational cannabis consumer, and this seemed to be a perfect fit. So we started this company up, and we work for large MSOs. We work for small mom and pops, you name it. And, you know, regarding social equity, something that kind of was brought up to us a few months ago in Illinois was, would we be able to build at a discount for social equity applicants and social equity licensees? And we looked at it, and that's something that, Dimitri, I know we talked about that we do offer. So for social equity applicants, for social equity licensees, we have some not only discounted rates, but we'll also work with the applicants on budget, on, you know, itemization of actual construction costs. We will look at the facilities. We will fly out and look at the different possible locations, and we don't charge for that. So that's just something that we offer for, you know, the social equity applicants, and something that we like to do. And, you know, doesn't matter where it is. It's, you know, being in Chicago, it's easy to fly out anywhere.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned, and I'm sorry, I'm thrown off by the level of expertise that we have here. David and his group, they are our module sponsors for the day, and of course they can build dispensaries, cultivations, manufacturing centers, extraction labs. And so, you know, when you are a module sponsor, you come on here and introduce yourself to the world. So David, you know, we really appreciate you being here. And as everybody knows, there's 130 manufacturing licenses out there. that are for lease, 130 cultivation licenses out there, many of which will be for lease. So that's the big opportunity that's going to exist in Arizona, of course, plus the 12 dispensaries that will be built in county backfill and the 26 dispensaries that will be built for the social equity applicants as well. You know, those are all opportunities for a company like yours. Anything else you want to tell us about what you guys do? And we will include in that freebie list a summary of what you guys are offering for the social equity applicants and Weed Maps and all the other companies. So as soon as I turn it over to Caleb, I'm actually going to go into our master document and put your name so that we can make sure that we know. So thank you. That's great that you're willing to do that. And of course, any other companies, please contact us. You don't need to sponsor us. Anybody who has a freebie out there, we are creating a master list, and I'm certain that it's going to get shared nationally. I just feel it. But anything else you want to tell us, David?
No, that's pretty much it. Just you name it, we can build it, especially in the cannabis world. So I'm just excited to, enter Arizona, especially in the winter. We got out there a couple of times. It's nice to get out of Chicago for the winter, but no, anything and everything, we'd love to be able to build it, especially, get out there with you guys.
No, that's fantastic, David. There's going to be so much building in Arizona, and it's good people have a resource. And I love what you're doing with social equity. So thank you for supporting our project, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, and feel free to jump in, ask questions of these guys. You're one of the panelists, facilitators today. And real quickly, let me introduce our last facilitator before I get to Caleb, who's helping facilitate the whole program. Just to say hello and see if he wants to bring anything up. Dr. Humble, the individual who created the medical marijuana program. Jared, and I remember when we were afraid of this man. We didn't know what he would do and where he would take it, but he created a great program for Arizona. Thank you for helping us with the social equity educational aspect of what's happening with Prop 207. Any comments or thoughts?
Yeah, no update yet this week, Dimitri. I got my ear to the ground listening to my former team as they, get ready to hopefully start building the rules pretty soon. One of the things I'd like to see them do is to put together some focus groups from people in the industry so that they get some, which I found, valuable when we were doing the medical marijuana rules back 10 years ago. But hopefully I can get them to do some focus groups, which maybe we can populate with some of our participants so that they can get some information from the field about specifically the criteria they're going to use to select, what qualifies as somebody who has had a disproportionate impact from the criminal justice system related to marijuana laws, et cetera, and social equity piece. So we'll see. We're still a few months away. I'm certain of that, but I'm always happy to participate. And I learn something every sinle week. So looking.
Get ready for this. I mean, we have like scientists and scholars and academics and the level of talent here. So with that, David, thank you for joining us as a module sponsor. Please stay on, interject, ask questions, and panelists ask questions of each other. If Jared says something that's way off base, which he won't, Matthew say, hey, what's up with the CO2 thing or whatever, I won't pretend to be able to make a joke on this subject. Caleb.
That was an okay joke, Dimitri. I'll say maybe a slow clap on that one. So thank you, Dimitri. And thank you to all the panelists for being here. A big thank you to all of the sponsors that helped to make this happen. David, great to meet you. I've heard great things about your company. And that's just tremendous of what you guys are willing to do for all the social equity applicants and all of those aspiring entrepreneurs that are where we were 10 plus years ago. So thank you. Appreciate everybody being here. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and dive in. I certainly have quite an extensive knowledge of extraction, but nowhere near the wealth of the panel here. So I'm going to learn a lot today as well. So I'm really looking forward to diving in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to kind of keep everybody up to speed. We got a presentation that's going to kind of generally guide us here. So we are now in week 8 of the program. We've gone through and talked about social equity licensing, done a history and a background. We've talked about how to structure your deal and some of those important administrative things. And we've gone through the various revenue lines and the various aspects of the vertical between retail, cultivation, And we talked about the products last week, and this week is really that deep dive into what is extraction methodologies, and what does that mean when you say extraction? That could mean 100 different things to different people. So what does that mean when it comes to cannabis? So today we're going to answer that question for you, hopefully. I'm sure we'll have a lot of answers there. We're going to talk about some extraction methodologies and how that's kind of evolved over time. It's hearing that intro from Jared of just seeing the differences and the things that he's done. I'm really excited to hear about that evolution, and George as well too. Wealth of knowledge with you, Dr. George. We're going to talk about the different types of extraction concentrates, so the end products. The decarboxylation process. What is that? Why is that important? And then lastly, we're going to touch on Prop 207 compliance, some of those things that ultimately our industry is compliance driven. And so it's important just to get everybody up to speed on some of those things that are specific to Prop 207. All right. So at the end of this module, all of the attendees will know at a high level the science behind preparing extracts for marijuana infused products, how to decarboxylate in order to prepare a variety of concentrates, and the Prop 207 compliant shapes, molds, and packaging. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and dive in. So what is extraction? I want to ask Jared, if you could explain, what does extraction mean to you?
So extraction for me is pretty much we're getting the biomass, the cultivated marijuana, and we are removing the resin from it. So, you know, in another form, that pretty much there's biomass, and the marijuana grows trichomes, which contain the heads, the glandular heads, which has all the good stuff in it. It's got the terpenes, got the THC, it's got all the cannabinoids in it. So what we're trying to do is get that resin that contains all the good stuff away from the biomass. That's the simplest way to talk about extraction. There's many methods to do it. From that initial separation, you can then process even further, refine it. I mean, the list goes on and the variety of products we can make, the concentrates, the isolations that can be done from that. So simply put, it's just the extraction of the cannabis resin from the biomass. That's the simple start of the process. So from there, we can dive in further if you'd like.
Nice.
He
What
read
about
it off
you, Dr.
Wikipedia.
George? I know you were talking about the evolution, and certainly your background. Extraction and essential oils is I learned that today. I did not know that Bulgaria was the leader there. So I'd love to hear
George,
what does extraction mean to you, Dr. George?
Well, it's a way to get access of an ingredient in a certain way and for better bioavailability, because you can get a plant, you can chew a plant, and that's an extraction. You're going to get access of oils or something else. You make a tea, there is another extraction. That's actually probably a couple thousand years old, since the Romanian Roman scientist Galenicus. It's known as Galenicus extraction. But over the years, everything developed to the point that we want to make that extraction more specific to certain ingredients, because you have in a plant, you have oil soluble components, you have water soluble components, you have ethanol soluble components, and you can differentiate in between them, because each of those components can give you a different feeling and different it can push different knobs in your body. So it depends on what you do, you pick your method for extraction. So for essential oils, you're going to use oil-soluble solvents. So for pharma ingredients, you're going to use some ethanol-soluble methods and so on. So yes, there's been a lot into extraction, and the simplest one, as I said, is tea extraction. So everything else starts from there.
Or the simplest one is just chewing it.
Yes.
Like, wait, okay. I remember that salicylic acid by chewing on a piece of willow. That was something I learned of. That's where aspirin came from, was somebody chewing on a branch. So that's funny. So Katerina, I would love to hear from you. You got a little bit different background coming in from formulation. So what does extraction mean to you?
I think Jared put it probably the best way. I view it the same way. Basically separating the chemical compounds, the cannabinoids, terpenes, from the plant material itself. So just having that first separation is where you start.
Nice. All right. So I'll go ahead and turn over to Matt. I'd love to get a perspective from you on what makes this a science and an art.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at a high level, each of the previous panelists touched on the science of extraction, right? The method of removing specific compounds from the biomass. And, that's a scientific process depending on the type of extraction you're trying, end product you're trying to produce, or the compounds you're trying to remove from that biomass. There's pros and cons to, many different extraction methods. In terms of it being an art form, I think it becomes, how we got to have so many variations of products. That's the art, right? The exploratory and the creative aspect of extraction led us to some of these amazing innovations we have in our industry. And many of those were applications of science or best practices from another industry and applying that to cannabis to see what would happen. I think that initial question mark is the art part of everything. What could happen? What is this gonna do when I combine these two solvents? Or if I put this in an oven and bake it for a little bit longer, is something going to happen? For me, that's the art form, and being able to apply these skills for a specific outcome.
Nice. Jared, same question.
Could you repeat it one more time just so I could hear it again?
Yeah, it's what makes extraction a science and an art?
Gotcha. It's a great question. So obviously inherently a lot of laboratory stuff involved with it, which makes it the science, the landscape, and what you're able to do it from. The science is any sort of manipulation of a biological material that's had an original form. You're taking cannabis flower and then you're deconstructing it pretty much into whatever form you would like to. So inherently there's going to be mechanical, chemical separations that you're going to be doing, as well as different solvents, pHs, temperatures, lots of different manipulation of that resin to get it to where you want. So I'd say inherently there's a lot of science in that. I've come from a cancer research background, actually, microbiology, did DNA and RNA extractions on the lab bench for about 3 years, and then was moved on to the cannabis industry. So it's very interesting to apply a lot of the stuff learned in that space into how it evolved in the cannabis space, which really wasn't defined. So a lot of things were carried over, safety being the foremost. On the artist side, it's kind of like we could give everybody the cookie recipe, and you go find your own ingredients and you kind of prepare cookies a different way, and everybody's going to come to the table, come back with a little bit different cookie, and that has to do with your starting input, how much of the input you're putting in there, the times. So there's a lot of decisions an extraction person or in the lab you're making. It's not written in stone. It's very things are still being figured out. There's no one way to skin a cat, let's say. So all those decisions leading up to getting to that final product is the artistic point. When do I put off heat? When do I put it on heat? How much, add this. And so there's a lot of decisions that go all the way to that final product. So inherently, that's where I think the artistic form comes from. It's really fun seeing what others are doing and then trying to do it another way or to manipulate some other way. And that's what I have a lot of fun of. I'm like, okay, let's see what you could do. I'm gonna do it kind of better. I'm gonna do it different. And I pride myself in kind of seeing the landscape of the cannabis space and pioneering products and or getting ahead of knowing where things are headed. So that's where I have a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, I love the cooking analogy. I mean, it's my fiance is an amazing cook, and I could have the same recipe and it'll never turn out as well as she does it. So yeah, I really love that. So Katerina, I'd love to hear the same from you as well. As you're going into your formulations, and Jared was talking a lot about decisions. Tell us kind of a little bit about your process of how you see it as an art and a science.
Yeah, so it's really both, and I really like the art part of it, the artistic part, just because there's a lot of different methods that you could apply. You can get to the end point several different ways. So there's a lot of creativity involved as well. But with CO2, there's some limitations with CO2 with the end products compared to hydrocarbon. So I haven't worked with hydrocarbon at all. I've always only worked with CO2. So I got to develop, from the beginning, just extracting the oils and process that to different concentrates. And just developing that process is something that was very exciting and for me to do.
Awesome. I love hearing about the process. Dr. Humble, do you have any questions for any of the panelists about their art and their science? I know that you said that there are aspects of the industry that were totally new to you, this being one of them.
Yeah, this was an example. And, because the statutory language said, it kept talking about extracts in the language. And so, and edibles was in there several times. And so there were people on my team who said, there's no requirement that we allow for edibles. We could just have this just be flour. And I'm like, well, technically you're right. The way the statutory language is written, we could not include rules for extracts, but that would be inconsistent with what the voters approved. And so we got to find a way of building this into the rules. And so I didn't know anything about it. I had heard about butane. I don't know. I still don't know that much. I'm going to learn a lot today. But like, I know there's butane extraction and CO2 extraction. I can remember at one point we had a discussion about whether we should prohibit butane extraction because we didn't want to make big fire risks, because there was real questions at the very beginning about whether fire departments would be willing to go in and do fire inspections like they do at other facilities. I know that's no longer an issue, but in the early days, there was questions about, can we send our staff to a place that's in violation of federal law, that kind of stuff. So, to me, I always thought that I don't think we restricted butane. You guys would probably know better. You would know if we restricted that. Yeah, but I was hoping that most people would use stuff that wasn't flammable, so that we didn't have fires. But in the end, I think people just no one wants their place to burn down. So, I'm assuming if anyone's using butane, that's something that they're controlling for. So it's just another example of how unprepared we were as an agency to implement this program, because we're, the vast majority of us spent our entire careers in public health, whether that's women and children's health or public health statistics or infectious disease epidemiology, or with the Women and Infant and Children program, or with vital health statistics, or whether they work at the Arizona State Laboratory, or, emergency preparedness. Everyone's got their public health specialty. No one had any specialty in medical marijuana. And we had 120 days total to write all of the regulations. So it was a real foot race. But the more I watch these seminars, the more I feel like we did a pretty good job given the task that we had at hand and the level of expertise that we had within the agency.
Well, I would agree with you on that, Dr. Humble, and a big thank you for helping that decision at that point in time to allow everybody on here to be here and let that aspect of the industry develop. Thank you for helping to see past that and nix any talk about it being flour only.
Yeah, and the public health reason for that was that I had staff that thought that in other states, remember Colorado had gone before us, is that that when it comes to extracts, that's where the emergency department visits come in for people that are dosing way too much. They take some edible and they don't have an effect fast enough, so they take more, and then they're laying on the ground and someone takes them to an ED. And so people were telling me, well, the way you prevent that is we just won't let them do edibles. And because if you smoke it, you know the effect right away and you can stop without letting things get out of hand. And I thought, you know, we got to find a way to look, the voters, that was my guiding principle through the whole time was like, look, let's just read the plain language in the act. What does it actually say? And let's do that. And that's, if you can remember back to 2010 or to early 2011 in the media reports and so forth, I kept saying, look, the voters approved medical marijuana. We're going to try to deliver medical. The voters didn't approve adult use. Now they have, but this is 10 years ago. And, you know, they approved medical. We're going to try to make it medical. And a lot of those stakeholder meetings, if you can remember those meetings at ASU that we had that were like free for alls, people were like so pissed off at me saying, you know, it was the free the weed crowd that was there. You remember, and that we were super unpopular for trying to keep it medical. But I kept saying, look, if you want adult use, run an adult use initiative. You guys ran of an initiative on medical. So we're delivering medical and you can get pissed at us for it, but that's what the voters approved.
Caleb, if I may real quickly.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Humble provided a nice segue. I'm very good at putting myself into the shoes of a know nothing. You know, that's my thing. Butane, CO2. I know you have an agenda, but maybe we can get into the types of extraction because I don't even know the difference between all the types of.
Yep, that's exactly where we're getting into. And I think Dr. George would be a wonderful person to discuss about that here on the next slide. And certainly from a safety aspect, I know that's a big focus of his. He's developing his machines and it has to have safety ultimately. So we'll get into, I just want to show on the slide to everybody, 3 primary categories of extraction methodologies, which cover a whole lot. We got hydrocarbons, we got CO2, and solventless. So I want to go ahead and pull that down. I'll turn it over to Dr. George to give us some of his expertise on, let's say, take hydrocarbons. I know that is an area that you've been involved with for length of time.
Well, everything in nature works very simple. So the simple science in there is similar extract similar. So everybody heard about polar, non-polar solvents and all kind of other stuff. The oils in the plant are usually non-polar. The thicker compound become polar and we don't want to really pull them like waxes and lipids and all other stuff. So that's why choosing a non-polar solvent is actually preferred for extracting oils. And usually hydrocarbons are that non-polar solvents, while CO2 is a polar, but put under that over 600 atmosphere pressure becomes non-polar, and it can behave as either one. So with that said, hydrocarbons are one of the best ways to extract terps and resins without getting to the heavy waxes and solids in the plant. That's why, and the extracts coming from the hydrocarbons are more preferred from everybody. The next step down in the science is that usually the solvent has the electric constant ratio based on this polarity, because some of the hydrocarbons, and there are many, you have propane, you have butane, you have R134A, there are over 300 different hydrocarbons, even more than that, but 300 legally used for extraction or not. So they have different dielectric constant, and lower dielectric constant extracts the more volatile compounds towards moving up in the scale, and probably the ethanol is very far on the right side. Of course, the water is the other very far side, having the hydrogen and oxygen as a very big polar molecule that extracts really the solid parts of the. So the T is not our topic today. So we want to be into the oil part of the spectrum that we extract from the plant. So yes, really hydrocarbons can deliver the best taste and best extracts out there for this industry. But usually the industry adopted few other methods for extraction too. And why is that? Well, again, CO2 is one of the methods that you can read everywhere, and you can use it as a very useful tool because you can drive it in a different pressures, temperatures, and you get different parts of the plant. But is that an art? Because what is the art? The art is to get what you need very selectively. Everybody can extract a lot of things, and after that, do like a 10 steps to isolate components of it. Can you do it in one step? So that's why we start driving all these solvents, like again, another polar solvent like ethanol, into a very cool mode. Then that drops down the dielectric constant of the solvent, and that dissolves more toward the oil part, but it's still polar. Same thing happens with butane. We drive it to minus 20 degrees, then extract only the essential oils, but not the waxes. Well, that drops the yields, but who cares? We have good extract, you sell it to your audience, and you're happy. So with that regards, we just studied this. We offered another method of extraction of modified hydrocarbon that we kept the the boiling point very low, so it behaves like a CO2. And at the same time, it's not flammable. So you can build systems that are 100,000 liters even. With hydrocarbon, it's not going to do that because volatility becomes a very big liability too. And combining it even with simple solvents, you can have benefits of both. But that's my 10 cents on it.
You're a wealth of knowledge, Dr. George. That's I learned about 15 different things in that conversation right there. Jared, I want to ask you about some of the what's some of the methods that you guys use, and how does that impact about, like, why would you choose one or over the other based on the products you're looking to create?
That's a great question. So I've played with a lot of different solvents and methods of extraction. I will admit CO2 is one I've not had the chance to do it for a variety of reasons. To start there, CO2, very high cost unit. So the initial cost, especially back in the day, was really high to kind of get into. CO2 is great for those who don't want to use solvents. Some people just choose not to want to have to deal with the thought of a residual solvent being left over in extract, and they just want that clean, conscious mind to start from. So CO2 is a great option for them. It does yield, I should say, that I've seen some really, really good CO2 extracts. So once you get dialed in, you can make a nice dabbable CO2 extract. So we haven't really got into the different extracts and what they're used for. Drip, we're huge into the smokable concentrate. So we're talking about dabs and concentrates where patients are medicating. They're trying to mimic the plant profile. So it's our jobs as Drip, and what we're trying to do is to concentrate the flower form, the same ratios of cannabinoids and terpenes, and to concentrate that as best we can, maintaining that same ratios of everything, just without the biomass. So we, for that reason, CO2 is not a good option for us. There's a lot of things you can encounter CO2. There's water you have to deal with. Sometimes you have to decarboxylate the material ahead of time to get better yields. Run times are really long, et cetera, et cetera. Great for edibles though, you know what I mean? Like there are definitely pluses and minuses, but moving on, we're heavily into butane extractions, hydrocarbon extractions, butane propane blends. Like Dr. George started off, it's an excellent solvent for the cannabis industry. The non-polar nature of butane is a great candidate to pull the cannabis resin and terpenes, and it's very, very selective in what's going for. So it's really going up those non-polar items. So we can be assured, especially when you're doing, like you said, the negative 20 Celsius, we can leave the plant waxes behind and really be rest assured once we purge the butane away and propane, if you're using that blend, that you're just going to be left with the cannabis resin and terpenes. So it's one of the cleanest, most effective, highest yielding methods to do it. And it's very easy to remove butane. So it's been a big proponent for us to choose. There's a variety of ways to get it done. The other things that have to be considered with using the propanes and solvents is retention times, run times, size of your extractions. Because we are a higher niche quality, we really are looking for the top end product. So it's not really yield or quantity what we're going after. We're really after going for the quality. So we're trying to maintain that more than anything. So it's quality, and then it's yields. And then once we can do that, it's all about scalability after that. So butane has been a big one. Solvent, ethanol is a great candidate for some people. It does not make a good smokable concentrate. I'll say that. Some have tried, some are still selling it. I'll let them talk about what they'd like to. It is very difficult to get ethanol out of the concentrate resin because it has a slight polar nature to it, and it wants to pull water. So if you're not careful with the extracts, you can be pulling other soluble items through that. It is great for distillate production. It is one of the best solvents that we have right now for just straight extractions from biomass. So if you have thousands of pounds of biomass hemp, we've seen this where it really took off, where you have acres and acres of hemp, and okay, we got to extract a lot. We have to extract all of a sudden. And you know, as Dr. George referred to, you know, having 100,000 liter butane extraction is just not sane. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of inherent dangers that bring with that. So using a lower boiling point and flammability solvent like ethanol, there's big vats and reactors that are made where you can wash hundreds and hundreds of pounds of cannabis with ethanol, recover it very safely, and then you can have a crude product. Once you boil down recover the ethanol, you can have a nice crude product that is great for various products. It's not going to make the best smokable, but it's one of the precursors for distillate and RSO and a good crude oil that can be distilled, refined, and isolated into further compounds of what you need, mainly for manufacturing. You're not really, like I said, you're really not going for that smokable. It's a lot more for the manufacturing process, but that's where ethanol is really taken off. Beyond that, solventless CO2 can be considered solventless. Some do. I mean, the CO2 isn't acting as a solvent, so depends which side of the page you're on. But beyond that, ice and water at really freezing temperatures, 34 degrees or below, will actually. This is how we make our rosin. Mix ice water, and the biomass, and it freezes the trichrome heads. And what it does is the ice freezes it, knocks off the trichrome head. So we have this this gland, and then we run it through different bags, which are different micron sieves, and we're able to isolate just those cannabis heads. In that cannabis head is all the terpenes, cannabinoids, all the good stuff we want. So actually, after we collect that, we've got the cannabis glands away from the biomass. So we can collect that, freeze dry it. We're able to then pack it into a rosin bag, heat and pressure, and squeeze out all the resin, leaves the waxes behind, get one of the most high-end quality products you can do using non-solvents. So that's a little intro for you.
Wow.
Nice. Thank you for that. So Matt, I would love to hear on some of the clients and products that you've helped to develop and helping to commercialize. Is there one type that you're seeing more than the other? I would love to get your perspective on different methodologies and kind of what you're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've definitely seen an evolution of the products in their final form, and the starting point of that is the extraction process. So similar to drip, our clients and our companies are looking for extraction processes that'll produce an end result that sometimes aligns with their target demographic as well as the desired end product, right? So we have a portfolio company called Jenny's Rose that's a medicinally focused organization that specializes in a unique ethanol extraction paired with a novel decarboxylation process, because they have a theory of homeostasis within the body, and they believe that some of those plant fats and lipids will help balance out your body internally and can lead to a more medicinal effect in terms of wellness. We also have another portfolio company called Huga that specializes in hydrocarbon extraction and solventless extraction, and they're really focused on the premium connoisseur grade dabbable products. And so those are probably, here in California, we're seeing a huge trend on the solventless side. And it's kind of fracturing out to be a front runner in terms of a connoisseur grade product. And then we're seeing another split on wellness focused or infused products that are trying to capture the entire profile or preserve the integrity of the cannabis plant in the product that they're presenting with an alternative delivery method relative to smoking.
Nice. Yeah, lots of cool developments, and it's always changing. Certainly see that in Arizona as well too, with the solventless gaining traction, smaller yield, smaller batch sizes. It's just more, it's a more involved process and more steps in the process to get to that point. So yeah, definitely seeing that it's as the industry is maturing, you're seeing more of those kind of niches products of, just like in any other industry, of like, this is, we're starting to tailor more for specific kind of customer types and what their ultimate experience wants to be. Katerina, I want to hear from you. I know that you said that you had started with CO2, and make sure I'm remembering that correctly, that was the primary method that you had been involved with. So I'd love to get your kind of perspective on CO2 and how you've been using that in your formulations. We're going to get into different product types here next after this methodology. So just heads up, that's coming up.
Yeah, so we primarily use CO2 here. We have that EPEC system. So with CO2, you can, pull different fractions. So basically the first fraction is terpenes. So isolated terpenes are pulled out. The second and third fractions are the content within each one is different. So the cannabinoid and terpene profile for the first, second, and third fractions are all different. The second fraction mainly has a lot more lipids, heavy lipids. The third fraction has very, very light lipids, and it's primarily THCA. So with those three different fractions, you can kind of manipulate what kind of end product that you want. So, I was able to create different methodologies with knowing, with those three fractions, I can develop oil for edibles, I can develop concentrates, and I can develop isolated, isolates. So.
Nice. Yeah, it's the second time I've heard dial it in. So that is one thing just to keep in mind for anybody going into this. There is always going to be a learning curve, even with new equipment, new manufacturer, certainly trying a new method. Expect that there's going to be a learning curve, and cut yourself some slack as you're dealing with it. Start with small batches so you don't get too far along and end up with something that you certainly were not trying to go for. So would love to ask David if he's here to be able to answer a question, just to see like what are some of the type of facilities that are being built more so? Like, are they seeing more geared towards the butane, more towards CO2? I didn't know if he was still here with us to be able to answer a question.
Well, we'll let him come back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that. So, all right. So let's go ahead and continue on. Thank you, everybody, for your input. This is a phenomenal discussion. So we are going to go, becoming the Zoom master here.
Types of products.
So the next one is types of extractions and concentrates. So kind of a high level, we've talked a little bit about a few of them, both BHO and CO2 dabs, vape pens, tinctures, bubble hash, rosin. There's a whole lot of different options that you can go. So I would love to hear from the panel. Let's Katerina, on some of the new products that you've been creating, on how do you make your decision on what you want to produce?
Well, a lot of our production is just oil right now for edibles. The Kindred line is very large, so we have very high manufacturing for our capsules. So high production of oil is mainly our priority. Our concentrates, for the catatonic line is very limited. So we have, limited time, limited manpower to dedicate to that. So, but what we do dedicate is, we try to have the highest potency, the highest quality isolates out there for the catatonic brand, which is our THCA pre-rolls, our Terps on the Rocks, and our diamonds.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Dr. George, I know with your clients, you have people coming primarily, it seems like, for the bulk inputs and to kind of help with the production. So I'd love to just to hear on some of those types of products of how your process works, if it's all customer driven versus what you've already developed and kind of showing your customers what options they have.
Okay, so I'm looking at your list here in the slides. So we've done a lot on developing vape pen oils, and we developed a number of recipes of doing those. Of course, keeping the acid phase is one very necessary thing, especially if you make DAP products. But also we try to keep that into the vape products. You know, even the vape pen doesn't go over the 350 degrees, so it can turn for a very quick time the acid phase into light alcohol phase. It's still valuable to have, let's say, 50% acid, 50% decarb material, and quite some amount of terps. So we had few objectives over here. First, to make a vape without any cutting agent, because the cutting agents that you use usually are lipid oils, PG, VG, which are not good in the long term. They deposit in your lungs, and there were some cases reported of casualties. Even that is not good if the person uses that very often. So that's why our target in the last year was developing a methodology how to do vapes without any cutting agent. To, just draw the light terps and cannabinoids with the boiling point below 160 degrees and not going over the boiling point of 200 where the lipid oil resides. And we had some success mostly with the hydrocarbon, our hydrocarbon extraction, doing either live resin. Usually the live resin you get, keep with a consistency of 20-30% terps and about 60% cannabinoids, perfect for like liquid consistency that can flow in a vape easily, and it can brings the best experience for the user as smoking the actual plant. And you can do that even from lower grade trim and higher grade you use for smoking. We also did explore a recipe that we kind of run acid phase, after that decarb the material and run the decarb material also through the same process, and keeping everything into the like drain the extract from decarb and non-decarb all together, so it organically mixes together. So different recipes, we had very good response to those. I can share those always with COAs and methodology how to do it with anybody interested. So yeah, that's been pretty much our development in the last year.
Nice, nice. So you sounds like you responding to the market, you have some input from customers, you have ideas that you kind of go and develop, and you can see this is a need that I see in the market, and we fulfill it in order to provide that for your clients.
Yeah, our target was strain specific. So they have to experience the same strain, they extract, and in the same day they can put a label on the vape that this is the strain they extract. And their customers should experience the same thing, smoking the flower and tasting the vape. So this combination was really working very well for us.
Nice. It's all about that end experience ultimately with all of the products. Is that's why the products are being made, is for that end consumer. So Jared, same question to you. I know you got a lot of products you've developed, things have changed, evolved. So just talk a little bit about kind of that process. And you were saying about how dialing in a little bit about the art, and sometimes you get to the end and that helps you to kind of figure out, well, what product this is going to be because I tried something new.
Yeah, exactly. It's really fun when you first get going, you start tinkering and you see, oh, if I do this, I get this kind of thing. And as an extractor, your whole basis is a culmination of those experiences pretty much. So no one really told you what it does. It's kind of like, well, you show it to yourself kind of thing. So as an extractor, you're constantly trying things, observing, and then going back and redoing it. So inherently it's the going back and then, oh, let's do this again. Well, I know it did this way, so where can we go here, and making decisions. But yeah, like I said before, I've proven myself as someone who is a pioneer in the industry and seeing where products are going. understanding what is, what people are doing, and knowing how to, the newest trends or how to do it better kind of thing, or, dissecting it and understand, like I said, how we can do it better. But yeah, as products are created, it is a result as the demand from patients and as the industry as a whole. Years back, there really wasn't a good vape cartridge. Everyone was using propylene glycol, everyone was cutting it, or they're putting RSO in a cartridge. I did see that in LA. I mean, it was very primitive back then. So, it had to exist with what the knowledge then, but also with the current science and understanding and where those things are being, a lot of the stuff in cannabis is pulled from other industries. So pretty straightforward. The first e-cigarette that was actually in a vape cartridge, came from like the e-cigarette industry, propylene glycol. Like, how are they getting the nicotine in there? How can we vape it? Well, vaping's safe. And so there's these understandings that we reasonably accept safety when someone else is doing it. And so we try to mimic it and make sure that we're not trying to cause any other issues or harm. But inherently, we've seen a lot that's come from that, solvents and cutting things. And, like George was saying, the best cartridge we can do is not using a cutting agent at all. Pure live resin. There's a variety of ways to do that. I'm sure everyone is familiar with distillate. For those who aren't familiar with distillate is pretty much the crude extract of marijuana that is then fractionally distilled by vacuum distillation, and it produces 85%, 90% plus pure Delta 9 oil, which is, THCA is it will crystallize in its form, but the decarboxylated version of that is actually liquid in form. And depending on the viscosity of that oil, which is how liquidy or how the flow, if it's low viscosity, it's got a lot of flow, low flow. So depending on that and your terpene blend, you might just be able to put that into a cartridge immediately right off the top. A lot of this has to do with the hardware that we currently have available to us too. Everyone's heard of C-Cell for the most part. If you haven't heard of C-Cell, it's one of the purveyors of the vape cartridges, the most prevalent one on the market right now. It's a very good product. It does inherently have its drawbacks depending on what you're trying to do. For distillate, it's a great product. For pure live resin, that device might be a little more brash because of the heating element inside. Again, this trickles down to hardware. C-Cell, for example, is burning out at 9 watts. So the resistance in the power of that cartridge is pretty low, meaning it's got a high power output. So for distillate, it's pumping out a good amount of heat. So it's good for the distillate to cook it, to get a vape, to be able to vape it. For live resin, in my experience, the low viscosity, it's just too hot. It's going to burn through that. There's no way to buffer the heating atomizer coil. So some products are evolved with putting other, not dilutants, but let's say distillate. You can add a little distillate in there, make the viscosity a little thicker, and it enables the atomizer to burn through that oil without torching it, without burning the taste of it. So there's a lot of playing around with that, finding the right ratios, what's working right, not only in your concentrate mixes, but also then going to your hardware and devices and seeing what that's doing there. Another device from C-Cell is we're PAX, as you see in the background. We're the first brand partner in Arizona. We really hit the industry, got it almost in every door that was into every other door that we had our C-Cell. It is a silica wicking system. It's a pod-based system. It's got a microprocessor chip in it. So it cycles the heat up and down to deliver a consistent temperature the whole time. On your phone, you can set it to every degree, as low as 420 degrees, all the way up to about 800 degrees. So you could set it to the exact degree that you would like to depending on the product you're consuming, to get the most pleasant vape experience. We do offer distillate-based pods, which have to do a little higher temperature. But our most prideful product we have is the sauce pod, which we put straight live resin, the terpene layer from our live resin sauce, which I can explain a little further. We put that straight into the pod. You can vape it at 450, 500 degrees. And I'm not big on vapes as much as I am flower and so forth, but it is the best vape cartridge out there. I am not just saying that, but it is because of the ability of that silica wicking system, the microprocessor control, and the ability to just vape at a low temperature delivers the best experience. So vape has a lot of different nuances depending on the product you're trying to make and the hardware you're using. I mean, it is very trial and error with what you're trying to do in your inputs and starting materials. Aside from that, like I mentioned, drip is huge into dabbables and BHO. So butane extracts are very large, our consumer base is very, very large into that. So from the butane extracts, we can create a variety of products from that. I mean, butane, so BHO is kind of the acronym for butane hash oil, which is the concentrated resin that we get after extracting the biomass. And from that resin, we can manipulate it into a variety of ways to make a handful of products. Some names are shatter, batter, wax, crumble, can be made into sauce, which sauce is, you take the process of the live resin or cured resin, you're putting in a container with a little bit of heat and pressure, and you're precipitating the THCA molecules out of it. Because the concentration is so high of THCA, it's super saturated. So with the removal of the solvent, you find the right layer where we get a little crystal formation. And because there's so much other THCA there, it's gonna, the THCA that's available, it's gonna crash down to a little diamond like right over there. And so what that does is it crashes out the THCA, it pulls the THCA out of that remaining layer in the volume. So the bottom layer will be THCA. The top, what that does is removing the THCA from that liquid layer, but it's concentrating the terpenes that are already there. Since we're taking something out, we're inherently concentrating the rest of it. So that top layer, you still find about 50% THCA, and you get 15 to 25% terpenes detectable. That's what the lab is finding. Not to say there's not more in there, but that's what we actually have standards for and the lab is finding. So that's what we call our sauce layer, our HTE. We'll take that liquid layer and we'll put it under our cartridges. We have a live resin C cell we'll do that with, and we have a live resin pod. So that's one of the best ways to medicate in the vape, I believe. Like I said, we'll leave the mix, the THCA mixed with the sauce, and that's, we call that terp sauce or sauce. That's another very, very popular concentrate. Aside from that, I'd say batters are probably number one. This was a shatter market not that long ago. I was playing with shatter. There's a lot of nuances that come with it, depending on how wet your material is, what temperature you're purging at, how long you're purging it. You do it too long in the vacuum oven, you crumble it. You can start this process of deterioration, let's say, where it's not the most stable product, let's say. So in doing this a long time ago, we were noticing this going out to a lot of our wholesalers, and it didn't have the best shelf life, even though everyone is holding up big slabs of shatter, all these things. And it was just, that was the cool thing to do. And I'm sitting there like, this isn't, I'm smoking it and like you smell it, smells all right. But then I'm whipping up batter. Batter has way more terpenes, way better shelf life. So we're sitting there, I can make shatter, I can make batter. It's the same input materials. Why I'm gonna make this inferior product, which I think that was the trend at the time. When I can make this higher, this better tasting, more robust, more flavonoids, more prevalent smells of what you're trying to go for, better shelf life. I mean, much better shelf life. Why would I make the shatter? So as a group, we made a decision in Arizona, we're gonna stop making shatter. And I will say this, a lot of people followed that trend. You're not gonna find a lot of shatter out there. It's referred to as a lower end concentrate now and sold for cheaper. So, besides their batteries, you can have waxes, honeycombs, crumbles. Like I said, it's just manipulation of that BHO. Rosins is a whole other subject with the solventless extraction. So
many different products. I think that's, thank you, Jared. You're a wealth of knowledge as well, sir. There's so many different products. And I think hearing that, having the exact same starting input, and you can choose which direction once you dial it in, once you've done a lot of those practice runs, and you'll know with it that experience that is gained, and you really only get that through experience. It's another, that's the art piece of it.
Yeah, Caleb, before you get to your next subject, time out here for just 1 second.
Yep.
I'm listening to Jared, and I'm intensely focused, and I'm barely picking up everything he's throwing down. So I don't want anyone out there to feel discouraged about going through this process. There are Jareds out there. There are Matthews. There are Katarinas. There are Dr. Georges out there to help you with your dreams of getting involved and working towards a license or a business. These guys are artists, they're scientists, they're experts. And my God, Jared, I've never heard you speak at this length. I'm just like, this is just like throwing me. I'm really impressed. But just, keep this in mind. We're giving you a high level overview, stuff that you should know, but don't worry if some of this stuff seems a little complicated, because there are consultants and groups out there to help you. And hopefully if a social equity applicant contacts one of you guys. I know you have non-competes and you're working with organizations, Drip and Kindred, fantastic organizations, but please, give them a few minutes of your time. And Matthew, a great course for a social equity applicant coming into this market would be to find somebody like yourself from another state with a level of expertise or something that's not available in Arizona, and work with you and partner with you. Because I mean, you guys are just amazing. So sorry, I just had to input that. Caleb, go ahead, back to your next subject.
It's
Sorry.
a lot of information, and it's really of knowing that having the experts, that this is after decades of experience and trial and error, and I didn't mean to do that moments. That has gotten to this point.
I mean, this is like, high level stuff, and we're targeting a crowd that's supposed to be learning. And we brought in like Henry Kissinger, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton to teach about politics to a bunch of third graders, not that anyone's a third grader, or, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, wow.
This is very detailed, and there are a lot. We could speak on this for weeks, months.
Wow.
Matt, I want to get your perspective before we move on to the next topic of what are some of the products that you're seeing more so with some of the clients that you've developed, and just briefly on kind of how the evolution you've seen out in California.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I dive into that, I just want to let everybody that's listening in know that when you're first approaching this industry, you don't have to know it all. You don't have to do it all. If you listen to each of these extraction experts up here, they all have their kind of best practice and application of a specific, or maybe one or two or three extraction methods. Each extraction method is going to have its own unique set of equipment needs and knowledge that you need to understand to run that type of facility. So keep that in mind. That kind of ties into like positioning. There's kind of three things we really talk to or really address when we're discussing anything with a new client, right? Or a new project. And that is brand identity, your delivery method, and your target market, right? What are you trying to produce? Who are you trying to get it to? And we kind of back into it from there, because we believe that longevity is tied to the alignment of those three things. And that is both from a B2B standpoint, as well as a business to consumer standpoint, right? Like your brand needs to align with your target market, and the way you're providing them whatever concentrate or delivery method needs to align with them. So, we find that as the consumer becomes more and more sophisticated in understanding the science behind some of the products that they're seeing on the shelf, they may gravitate towards one or another. You may not find someone who's looking for a very holistic experience, quote unquote, holistic experience, go and pick up a BHO oil. They may tend to do an ice water hash or a rosin because the extraction method is utilizing ice and water, right? It's a much more natural process, so to speak. And then on the other side of that, on a B2B standpoint, you're going to want to look at, do you want to be that brand? Do you want to go and compete on the shelves with other brands and try to capture that consumer's attention? Or are you going to be a mass producer of a specific type of concentrates? Are you going to, perfect the BHO angle and kind of wholesale those to people who want to do brands and be the support system behind them? And these are some of the evolutions that we've seen here in California as the market has grown, become a little more mature, and the consumer becomes more sophisticated.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. It's a great information on the evolution and really thinking about where you want to be in the marketplace and how that's going to drive your decisions. I mean, ultimately, that's where you're trying to enter in business and see, where do I fit within this marketplace? And you don't have to do everything. That's one thing that I found from a lot of companies and clients that I've consulted with, is that the ones that are successful they focus in on their core areas, that this is what I want to do and I want to do it well. and then look at expanding into multiple products. I mean, I guarantee Katerina, Jared, you guys were not making the wealth of products that you are now. When you started, you had this one. Okay, this is working well. Let me expand and let me go from there. Okay, so I know it's been touched on a couple of times, so I just want to pull up for a few seconds on the presentation. So the word's been thrown out here a couple of times, decarboxylation. So this is a very important process to extraction. So I want to pose to the panelists on what decarboxylation is and what is happening. Like what is that process? So I'll just pose it. So if whoever would like to answer. Go ahead, Jared.
I'll dive right in. That's pretty simple in nature what we're talking about, but decarboxylation is simply the removal of the CO2 group from the THC molecule. So we're going from THCA, which that A is the acidic carboxyl group. We're at a certain temperature, it vaporizes, it falls off, and we have THC, which is edible ready. It's ready to be consumed. THCA, when it's naturally grown on the plant, when you apply heat to it, it's converting to THC instantly from that heat. So that's where we get the vaporation in our lungs, and that's where we get the medication from. Furthermore, you see decarboxylation most when an edible brand is trying to decarboxylate their oil to make it orally active. There's a multitude of ways to do that. In the current landscape, I must say there's not a lot of decarboxylation going on for edibles unless you're in a niche product. I'd say a lot of producers are using distillate, which in its nature, going through the distillation process from crude oil to vacuum distillation, it goes under such extreme temperatures and pressure, negative pressure, that it decarboxylated in the pressure. So the end product is decarboxylated already. So if you're in the edible space, you probably just gonna be familiar with using distillate ready to go. If you're using RSO for edibles, I think twice. There's a variety of other ways to get to a more finer niche product, but ultimately it's going to be a more higher expensive end result. So not necessarily the wisest choice for the most producers. So yeah, light little intro.
You're on mute, Caleb.
Yeah, what about you, Dr. George?
Well, I was looking at that table that you provided in the slides. That's about right. The temperatures and timing mentioned in there is correct. The bigger dilemma is, do we decarboxylate before or after the extraction, or is that matter at all? In a lot of cases, decarboxylation is done after the extraction. That's because usually with ethanol, CO2, you don't really need to decarboxylate. You get all the acids out there, and you can use in order to activate your oil, you decarb it. But what happens if you decarb it before that? So those acids that they convert to light alcohol, so that's oxygen group that disappears. That's something that creates lower polarity on the group. So then you can speed up your extraction. So if you convert before your extraction, especially for the non-polar solvents, that helps the process to speed and to achieve higher yields. That's very often used in the hydrocarbons and into even CO2 to decarb before that, if you want to increase the speed and yield. Unless you want to make some of the acid products like shatters and wax, you keep that decarboxylation out of the picture. But yeah, everything's correct what Jared said. What is important to notice over here is, yeah, is your process doing the flour or extract is better? Because sometimes having the extract, you may also convert THC to CBN, which you don't want to do, and some other side effects.
Katerina, I want to hear from you about decarboxylation. I know with your focus being in CO2, about how does that happen in that process, and yeah, just to explain a bit about that and how that ties into the products that you're making.
Yeah, we actually decarb at the end. So it's, I think the process is pretty simple. THCA gets converted to THC through heat, and CO2 is given off. But yeah, we, that pretty much has already been said. So, but yeah, we use most of our decarbed oil for our capsules for our Kindred brand.
Nice. And is there any specific like unique methods on decarb that you use? Certainly don't want you to disclose anything proprietary, or is it just kind of a standard?
No, not anything, not a new method or anything out there for the decarb process. It's pretty much simple process, and I don't think there's anything that's going to be changed too much with that process. So
nice. All right. Thank you. Okay, so I know we've had a lot of science and art and some pretty deep conversations on all the different extraction methodologies and different types of products. And I think the one thing we've learned is that there's a lot of different methods, there's a lot of different products, and helping to find your niche and helping to get the right team behind you to help guide you and learn from all of our experience. So that kind of brings us into the last main topic of our presentation today, which has to do with Prop 207 compliance. So one of the things that we've seen is that there are going to be some specific restrictions and requirements on what types of packaging is going to have to happen at the retail level. And some of the things that we've seen from other states also about restrictions on what types of products, what they can look like. We've seen quite a few of those happen. So I would love to get perspective. Let's see, Matt, I'll go ahead and call on you. Some just perspective on some of the compliance things that you've seen and how you help your potential clients to ensure.
Yeah. And Caleb, maybe we should also, focus on Jared Kindred and Katarina Kindred and Drip, because they had to make some major adjustments to their brands and their products, switching from medicinal to adult use and et cetera. So, I mean, I don't think Matt knows too much about 207 though, but go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. We look at a lot of states and, there's multiple aspects of compliance when it comes to a final consumer good. We look at what the labeling requirements are, right? Some states have unique symbols that need to be incorporated, specific language, text size, as well as testing and compliance information related to the product, the originator of that product, and then also the actual packaging itself. Today, I want to say 5 years ago when child resistant packaging was being explored for this industry out of Colorado and Oregon, it was a pretty primitive idea. There weren't a ton of options. And now there are so many turnkey options at your disposal that are relatively cheap. If you want to go to a company like Kush Bottles or Green Lane, those are off the counter options for any SKU that you could produce. And usually for a startup, that's the most cost-effective way to go. They can create customization for you, incorporate logos, design, stuff like that, as well as, kind of beautify the labeling aesthetic of the compliance. When we first rolled out here in California, I remember, like companies like Beazle and ourselves, we had, a small little package that probably 80% of that package was covered in labels. And you had your Prop 64 label, you had your Prop 65 label, you had the tamper evidence seal, and then it had to be child resistant. And you're like, whoa, how's all this happening? And now it's become much more refined to where you can find something that looks good, that's cost effective, that will fit the identity of your brand, and that you can, really lean on. If you want to be more sophisticated, there are companies that specialize in custom designs for child resistant pre-roll packs or a child resistant cartridge container. That gets very pricey because you start dealing with customization and molds and MOQs and stuff like that. We really direct people towards the turnkey options and then customize within the parameters that are given to us by those providers.
Thank you, Matt. So, Katerina, I would love to hear on how you adapted to, we had some new testing regulations. One of the requirements I know in Prop 207 about exit bags. How did you address the kind of changes to those requirements?
Yeah, so we had to change our packaging, so it had to be child-proof, tamper-proof. So, you know, that was, you know, kind of the biggest costly change for us for the packaging part. A lot of the, you know, the full panel, so a lot of the additional heavy metals, pesticides. And then for us, it's the dose. So the target dose that we need to have for, you know, say 5 milligram capsules, we have to be within 20%. So with that, you know, you have to be pretty on point with your formulations, make sure that the concentration is right, make sure that fill volume is right for those capsules. And so, you know, it's 20% is a pretty good leeway for the higher doses, but for rec, you know, it's 10 milligrams, you know, per dose. So those two, probably the testing, which just a lot of the, you know, the issues came up is just because the high volume of samples going out to the testing facilities, which I don't think they were, you know, well prepared for, just the volume that they needed to go through. So there's a lot of wait time involved, and probably, you know, everyone is in the same boat. So.
Yep, definitely been hearing that across the board. Fortunately, the department I know has been working with the industry of pushing out a few of the aspects of those regulations in order to give the industry time to catch up. So yeah, really glad to see that. So Jared, what about you? What are some of the adjustments that you had to make to your packaging as part of the transition?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's really interesting. Before Prop 207 and even like what Will Humble referred to when he was speaking about 203 being passed, is there really wasn't, like, edible wasn't defined. And furthermore, medical marijuana infused products wasn't really defined until Prop 207. So that was the first piece of legislature which actually gave light to differentiating these different products and inherently what each of those calls for, safety, testing, you know, the various compliance needs. And so, you know, as the industry is evolving, a lot of these products and their needs are evolving what they need for edibles. You know, it's a great one. On 207, we saw medical. Hey, an uncapped milligram may not be the best idea. So 10 milligrams for rec was a good idea. It's to avoid, obviously, a person from over medicating. So inherently, we're seeing some an evolution of guidelines for individual products, you know, concentrates, just the same with edibles, you know, child resistant packaging, make it not easy for someone, a child or someone that should be getting into it to do. So I had to predicate that. Testing is a huge, I mean, that's a big thing we've all waken up to. Luckily drip was, you know, we were doing testing before, not to the full gamut of what the state was requesting. So it was a slight pivot for us. Wasn't as drastic as I think a lot of other people's encumbered, a lot of other groups encumbered, you know, especially with the delays. So it has caused some delays, but, you know, being ahead of the curve with some of our child resistant packaging, tamper proof, and just understanding inherently the dangers, what we see in other markets, we're trying to be ahead of the curve simply. And so there wasn't a whole lot of pivot that we needed to do. I must admit, you know, tinctures, that's the one thing that I'm trying to figure out how to make a smaller dose for. You know, we have a 600 milligram bottle. Currently it's 20 milligrams a dose. For me to mimic that into a rec size, it's just it may not be feasible for the rec market. You know what I mean? We're talking about a 100 milligram bottle from a 600 milligram bottle, much lower dose. So those are things we're working against that actually be that higher dose of medicine. It's kind of prohibitive. So, you know, we're learning as a whole here, and, you know, adjustments can be made hopefully in the legislature if need be, if it calls for, but inherently the safety, testing, packaging, I mean, these are all things that need to be happening. So yeah, it's been fun. It's a new day, learn something. So it's always fun.
Always something new that new adjustment, new things.
So Caleb, do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead, Dimitri. So we're pretty much wrapping up.
You know, so we're wrapping up in the last 15 minutes here. And you guys think about what you want to say about yourselves, your company, or whatever for a minute or two. But there's a couple other things. I wanted to give Dr. Humble a chance to, you're a smarter man than myself, and the level of expertise, knowledge, art, science just always blows my mind. If you want would you like to give us any thoughts or perspective on what you've heard here from the panel today?
I just learned a lot about, and by the way, I'm not the smartest guy on this webinar, far from it.
I just meant everywhere.
I know a lot about COVID. I think I was really interested to hear about that. And I'm glad that you got at the end to some of those compliance pieces around making sure that the concentrations are what you are, they're accurate, so that when the packaging goes out for those edibles, especially, so that the doses are accurate, so people know, okay, this is 10 milligrams. So I'm glad you got that. That was the area I was really interested in hearing about. And you touched on it at the end about the challenges with respect to testing under the adult program and what's been required. Is that a real barrier these days for businesses to, if the testing capacity isn't there, you're running into big backlogs? How big of a problem is that?
Jared, did you want to say something?
I would love to answer this question, because this has been the bane of my existence for the past 3 months. So inherently, the nature of the law, it's right, it's correct. We should be doing testing. How it actually was rolled out was not the best way. We rolled out with 6 labs. A lot of them weren't even accredited. A lot of them were outsourcing their testing to other labs. So, it's pretty much like, it's telling everybody in the industry, you got to go shop with these people now, and you give them one line. So the line's backed up and there's only one cash register. It's a way to think about it. The demand of how much product there's in Arizona is overwhelming for these labs. I mean, it simply was it was unfair to everybody involved, and more so for the patient, because what it actually did was cause massive delays. I mean, I have emails from labs talking about 4 to 6 weeks. My machine just broke. You go to this lab. I have to go test with another lab. I can only do this test. It really caused delays in getting medicine out to the people. That we do get a clean conscience of mind, knowing that medicine that is going out is tested, is clean. These labs are doing the best of their abilities, but I really think that it was they didn't have the best foot to step off onto. So we are still encumbering issues with the labs. You know what I mean? They do their job, but there's a small gray area of difference between the labs and us, of what we're doing and what they potentially are saying, and what their capabilities are. There are a few labs that are doing a great job. We're getting faster turnaround times, but overall, it's been a little bit of a mess to get through. I think we're getting better. There's some other people getting on board, some labs. But long story short, it definitely caused some issues in holding up product, getting out to the patients. I think we're getting better of that. I think though, when this law was actually, the testing bill was put into place, I think that one side of the industry was looking at it very well without really getting knowledge from the other side. And so when it came to fruition, I mean, everyone's in agreement for testing, but some of the little nuances, regulations, there's some PPMs and stuff. I mean, it could have been vetted out a little bit better. We could have referenced another industry. But overall, I think that, the product that is on the shelves now is tested, it's clean, everyone's surviving, getting through it, it's getting better. But, we could use a little bit more direction for the laboratories, I'd say. I think that, yeah.
Yeah, and just to let you know, Dr. Humble, we've added to module 16. It's sometime in mid-April. It's going to be all about testing, the evolution of, the history of, the reasons for, the status of. Kind of waiting until April. Right now, there's that big pissing match at the legislature between the labs and those other individuals.
I'd like to add one more small thing. Yeah, just real quick, just from a craft producer like ourselves, where we do small batches, it was really, really pivotal to change and how to redo things, because the small batches, how we were actually extracting them and putting them out, really wasn't financially viable after that. When we're talking $600 to $900 per test per batch. I mean, when you talk about per batch, you're talking about a strain of batch of marijuana at one time in one place in one extraction. That's not the day of the extractions. You're talking about one column, one extraction, one pour off, which you do the math. I mean, anyone without pivoting or being able to consolidate, their product line would have to go to business. So we did have to struggle a little bit as far as finding out what how to improve upon that and learn from the industry, because we were unable to do it any other way. So very interesting in that regards.
For the testing, we're going to have 3 testing labs and 3 industry members. So I would love to have you, Jared, as one of them if you want to get in there.
I probably used all the labs anyway, so I love it. Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're all friends here. And
Yeah,
and
no,
Katarina, if you want to join us as well. But let me get you back to the topic at hand. I mean, you guys are all clearly extreme industry resources. So I urge people to reach out to you guys directly for advice, especially on the topic of social equity. All of their emails are available on our website. Just come to the website. But just let's start closing it down. First question, resources, topics. Jared, you were talking about, how do you have a deep understanding, you learn this, you learn that, you learn, where's a resource except for Google, and Dr. George doesn't want to talk to anybody, everybody should just go to Google, he doesn't want any friends. Where is there a club? Is there a resource? Is there a website? What would you recommend to people that want to learn more about this subject?
That's a great question. There's a variety of consultants on hand that are very specialized. If I wasn't so entangled in drip and what I was doing with here in the products, I'd be a candidate for that. But someone that's specialized in the industry that actually is operating in it is going to be your best person. There's a variety of consultants that are available. It's a little bit, tricky balance to find, because a lot of the best people are going to be tied up with NDAs and non-competes, and the people that don't have that, they're kind of freelancers. But there's a great handful of people on there. There's a variety of websites, there's classes, there's institutions and recreational markets like Colorado and California, where people can fly in, they can learn about the different extractions. But from a business owner, you're really looking for someone, an operator that's going to be able to be your extractor that you can learn through, or you're able to go recruit that person from one of these sources. But there's a lot of variety, much more options now for finding that person.
Well, thank you. And we're Dr. Bobber is probably going to recruit you to teach a course at Scottsdale Community College. We'll get to her in a second. But Matthew, resources, where should people go?
I'm a firm believer that your community is going to be your best resource, really leaning on operators in the industry within your state, people who have walked the path, whether it's 6 months or a year or 2 years, a year in this industry is like 5 in any other, because it changes so rapidly. The other thing you can do is get involved with seminars. I know that's really hard right now given the whole COVID pandemic, but I know organizations are starting to put on digital seminars such as this, and it's just a matter of time before we're back to meeting in person, where you can go to, an extraction specific seminar or a cultivation seminar where you have all of these experts or companies that specialize in, lighting, extraction, equipment. And then most of the time there, you're going to have people that, are operators much like yourself trying to figure out. And it's a great place to just network and build relationships. And I can't stress enough the value of community.
Yeah, thank you. Matthew. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping, and thank you for educating. Katerina, where would you recommend, before we get to the Dr. George and I's debate as to whether or not anybody needs friends or they just need Google, where would you recommend?
Yeah, I would say try to get experience with someone in the trenches. Just hands-on experience would be the best way, especially, if you're starting out.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And Giving Tree, of course, Lilac over there is a wonderful helper. She's one of the first people to step up for the community. So I'm sure some social equity applicants teams will be reaching out to her and yourself and your whole team to help guide them through this process. So we thank you for that as well. Dr. George, I know you just say Google it, but let's just pretend like we're human beings and we all have to interact together. Where would you go for resources and for knowledge? Is there a club?
I see that I get quoted very often, but even I make a pancake on Saturday. I'm going to Google now to see any different recipe, because last time we talked about meat product. You can make even a cookie like 100 different ways. Of course, you want to go and see what others are doing. So Google was the best way. But now, talking about extraction, you can go to Pure 5 Extraction, and I've wrote about 20 articles there. I'm writing every other month article into Health Europe, into Terpene and Testing magazine. So you guys welcome to these are industry leaders into information. So we're trying to, at least I try to post into those places where people are reading for.
Well, that's great, because so Google links to your website. I see how that works. That was nice. So thank you. Okay, so everybody's gonna get 30 seconds to close up, but first the ceremony. I always bust out with my grandfather's machete from the fields of Oaxaca, which was used in the 50s to cultivate marijuana after he was a bracero and before they went through everything. So with my grandfather's machete, Jared, Matthew, Katerina, George, I dubbed the social equity mentors. So you've now been blessed by the thing, by the machete. Anyways, so let's say our goodbyes. Dr. Barbara, I'm sorry I didn't get to you much today. But
You're fine. I just want to throw out there, we like friends, and in our classes that we're teaching, there is a repository of resources and contacts. So we can work on that together, Dimitri, and sort of build that. But I just want to encourage everybody, our classes are online, they're available to everyone across the country. And we also have a legal regulatory class that specifically does a deep dive in all of the areas of business legal wise. So 420business@scottsdalecc.edu is my email.
thank you, Dr. Barber. We'll see you next week. Dr. Humble, any closing thoughts?
Thanks for the invitation. I'll see you next Thursday.
And thank you for helping us. You guys got to know that there's a team of individuals putting this together, and they're here every week. Hopefully Allison from Copper State will be joining us as well. And we'll be utilizing her skills, her imagination, her knowledge to improve this program. Caleb, any closing thoughts?
Yes, just thank you for the panel. Thank you for your engagement. You guys are what make this so valuable for all of the attendees, and just hearing your experience and knowledge. And you guys blew me away. I mean, I knew I was going to learn a lot, and I'm surprised with how much I learned. I thought I knew a lot, and get reminded every day there's always more to learn. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, please reach out. My email's been behind me the whole time. Definitely can help with guiding a lot of these decisions as you're going through and just helping you to navigate. So we're here as a resource as well.
Okay, so let's start. Let's go Dr. George, then Matthew, then Katerina, and then Jared. So Dr. George, closing thoughts, take a minute, send us back to your website again.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. We're an equipment provider, and we developed certain methods to be different than everybody else. I'll be happy to see our equipment used in more and more products, and to create more and more products, and from more and more providers in Arizona. So any thoughts, I am available.
Thank you. And he's the man that sells the machine that goes bing. Anyone? Monty Python Meaning of Life? No, my jokes are just not going over well today. Matthew.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the panel. It really is a privilege to speak to this group of, social equity applicants. Really looking forward to, connecting with many of you. We are here to support you guys in any question, no matter how large or small it is. This industry is very complex and nuanced, whether it's, compliance and packaging or testing to high-level business decisions and partnerships. We're here to help you mediate and navigate, financial risk, legal risk. We work very intimately with Zuber Lawler. You can check out our website at www.yescannabis.us. You can contact us there, and then I threw my email in the chat. So anybody wants to reach out, please do.
Well, thank you very much. And, the NCIA is using this as a model that they're going to replicate and do in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and whatever other jurisdiction needs social equity training, education for the applicants. So you guys might be contacted from individuals across the country. I think this is going to be a very popular one over the months to come. Lots of good information. Katerina, Giving Tree, Catatonic, Kindred, one of my favorite brands, Kindred.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me today. You can always reach out to me through email. If you're in Arizona, check out Kindred, Catatonic, Giving Tree Dispensary. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on a future panel.
Thanks.
Destiny, anything administratively before we let Jared close it up?
Just make sure everyone is signed up to the website as a social equity applicant student. If you want the recording sent to you, that should get you all set there. And then actually I wanted to share next week's event, March 24th. We have a networking event that you also can turn on your camera and come and chat with everybody.
That's 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks.
Yeah, no worries. So again, well, thank you, Destiny. And Destiny makes everything happen at Meta. So just please contact her. She's overwhelmed already. So let's give her more things to do. I'm just kidding, Destiny. So everybody, thank you for joining us today. We'll be back next week. What's next week's topic? Anyone know? Caleb, do you know next week's topic?
Hiring your staff.
Yep, HR.
A lot of HR stuff. That's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you, Weed Maps. So I'm gonna let you close this up, Jared. You did such a great job. You're gonna say the goodbyes and see you next week, whatever. Thank you, Weed Maps. Thank you, Copper State. Thank you, Zuber Lawler. Thank you, Scottsdale Community College, and all the other. Oh, and thank you to our module sponsors, Grow America Builders. David, are you still here? I think we lost David, but it's
I think
okay.
he had to run.
We're going to do a whole thing with Grow America Builders on the 24th, because we're going to be talking about the manufacturing and cultivation action, which is a whole area that's really exciting right now. So that's the 24th. So we'll see you then. And Jared, why don't you close this up?
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to help share the stage with some of these panel experts, and for the people listening. I hope you've learned something. Very excited for you to potentially join the industry. If you got any questions, reach out to me, Jared, Jared, @truemedaz.com. You can reach me there. If you need any guidance on specific products, inherently what all the nuances can come, I'd be happy to answer. Really, thank you for the time to talk about the products and talk science with these guys. I thrive in this environment. Look forward to doing more. And if you haven't been to TrueMed, stop by. We're now Rec and Smoke Drip. Give us a try. I think you'll be pleasantly happy. So thank you for everyone for their time.
Jared, you were awesome. I mean, and if I don't support Kindred, support Giving Tree, support TrueMed, support Drip. I mean, these are companies that are stepping up to help the community. So thank you guys for being here. And folks, we'll see you next week.